In the early 90s, the video game industry was dominated by Nintendo. The Japanese company had captured the market with its fun and family-friendly games, orchestrated by its mascot, a charming plumber named Mario. Sega, another Japanese company, entered the scene. It aimed to grab a share of this lucrative market with its console, the Sega Genesis, and its mascot, Sonic the Hedgehog. The 90s console war had officially begun. Nintendo's Super Nintendo Entertainment System, SNES, was up against Sega Genesis. Both consoles boasted unique features and games. Sega positioned itself as the edgier alternative, with Sonic's fast-paced gameplay contrasting Mario's more deliberate style. Sega does what Nintendon't became a popular slogan. Meanwhile, Sony, a well-established electronics giant, observed the escalating conflict between Nintendo and Sega, contemplating its own entry into the gaming arena. Initially, Sony proposed a partnership with Nintendo for a CD-based console. Unexpectedly, Nintendo backed out, leaving Sony to venture into the game industry on their own. The gaming landscape began to change as Sony unveiled the PlayStation in 1994. It boasted superior graphics, CD-based games, and a slick design that appealed to an older demographic. Unlike Sega and Nintendo, Sony focused less on mascots and more on an extensive library of games. PlayStation's mature titles widened the gamer demographic and surged its popularity. While Nintendo and Sega continued their rivalry, Sony silently started to dominate the market. PlayStation's success demonstrated that there was a significant audience beyond children. Sega, in an attempt to rival Sony's PlayStation, released the Sega Saturn. However, its complex architecture and high price tag resulted in disappointing sales. Nintendo, too, felt the power of Sony's PlayStation. Despite the release of the Nintendo 64, Nintendo's market share continued to shrink. While Nintendo and Sega were entangled in competitors' strategies, Sony was securing its throne. PlayStation became synonymous with gaming, holding a hefty portion of the market share. As the 90s drew to a close, it was clear that Sony emerged as the victor in the console war. PlayStation dominated the market with an estimated 70% of the global console sales. Sega, severely hit by the struggle, discontinued the Saturn. The company decided to make one last gamble with the release of the Sega Dreamcast in 1999. Nintendo, on the other hand, still held a special place in gamers' hearts. Its peculiar character and original games helped retain a passionate player base. The decade of the 90s was a pivotal time for the video game industry. Through intense rivalry and innovation, these three companies shaped the future of gaming. Sony's victory established a new status quo, validating a market for mature gamers. PlayStation's legacy would continue to impact the industry in the following years. Sega's Dreamcast, though innovative, could not compete with Sony's PS2. By 2001, Sega had withdrawn from the console market to focus on game development. Nintendo, undeterred by Sony's dominance, continued to innovate, creating endearing characters and games that embraced fun over graphical prowess. It's intriguing to muse about how different the gaming landscape might have been if Nintendo had maintained its partnership with Sony. The 90s console war was a crucial part of video gaming history. Despite the harsh battles, each company imprinted its legacy in the gaming world. Their intense rivalry spurred innovation and set the path for today's gaming industry. Sony, Nintendo, and Sega all contributed significantly to the industry. Today's video games continue to embody the spirit of competition, innovation, and fun that marked the console war of the 90s. Though the battlefield has changed, the essence of the console war remains. New players have entered the scene. Yet the tireless pursuit of creating captivating gaming experiences continues. Today, the echoes of the 90s console war can still be felt. While Sega may no longer make consoles, its influence is undeniable. The vibrant blue of Sonic is still a symbol of speed and rebellion. Similarly, Nintendo's commitment to creativity and fun continues to resonate. The success of their character-based franchises like Mario and Zelda is a testimony to their lasting appeal. Sony's PlayStation, now in its 5th iteration, continues to be a major player in the market. Its commitment to high-quality, immersive gaming experiences has remained constant. The 90s console war was more than just a business competition. It was a battle of ideologies and visions for the future of gaming. It shaped the industry, ensuring that video games would continue to entertain and inspire for generations to come. As a tribute to this iconic era, consoles from this period are now considered collector's items. Their games hold a nostalgic charm, a window to a time when the console war was in full swing. As we look back, we see a time of intense innovation. From the fast-paced Sonic to the immersive worlds of PlayStation, the 90s shaped a generation of gamers and laid the groundwork for the future of the industry. The console war of the 90s was indeed a defining time. As long as there are video games, the spirit of competition, innovation, and sheer fun that was alive during this era will continue to live on. The history of Nintendo, Sega, and Sony in the 90s is a testament to the transformative power of competition. It's a classic tale of rivalry, perseverance, and innovation that continues to inspire the gaming industry to this day. In the end, the 90s console war wasn't just about selling the most units. It was about creating the best experience for the player. And in that, every participant was indeed a victor. So here's to Nintendo, Sega, and Sony, the pivotal players of the 90s. Their impact on the video game industry is still felt today, and their legacy will continue to shape the future of gaming for years to come. Stepping into the future, the gaming industry continues to push boundaries, continually evolving and in many ways still preserving the spirit of the 90s. The console war may have ended, but its influence lives on. As we fondly remember the console clash of the 90s, we acknowledge the undeniable influence it had on shaping today's industry. Indeed, the gaming world wouldn't be the same without this monumental era.